Hello lawn mowing people. Today I'm going to talk about questions you should be asking when you're looking at buying a lawn mowing business. Now, one of the first questions that you should ask is, why are they selling? It could be lots of different reasons as to why you're selling. One of them might be change of direction. If they say change of direction, then yeah, have a look at it. It's you've really got to ask yourself, how long have they been doing this? I mean, if they've been doing it for a short amount of time and they want to change a direction, it means it's not going very well. So I'd dig into that. I'd find out what the details are. I'd find out how long they've been running the business. If they're moving out of town, that's a fairly good reason for selling a business. It's I'd want a little bit of evidence of that, if they got their house for sale, and if they've got their house for sale, find out whether it's conditional that they're moving out of town only if they sell a house, because if they sell you the business and then end up having to stay in town, they may be tempted to move back into the industry. So I'd check that out. Now, so if they've been mowing lawns for about 10 years and they've decided that they've had enough of mowing lawns and they want to do something else, then that's fair enough. I'd say the only thing that I'd look out there is are they still charging the same prices that they were charging 10 years ago? Just make sure that they haven't got any legacy customers there that are that they're mowing lawns super cheap for. Now, the other thing you want to establish is, what are they selling? You want to ask about the turnover. They'll give you a turnover. They'll give you a figure. Now, you'll probably find that you'll get two different figures. You'll get the figure that they give you, that includes all of the cash work, and then you've got a figure that they give you, that's the figure on the bank statements and on the accounts. I'd go with the figure on the accounts. Cash work means nothing when you're selling or buying a business. It doesn't mean anything. It may or may not have been done. So have a look at their yearly turnover. Now have a look at the last few years. Is their turnover going up or is it going down? If the turnover's been decreasing for the last 3 years, then that could be something worth looking at. You'd want to know why that's happening. Now, another thing is drawings. How much are they paying themselves? You want to work out, what the hourly rate is, and also when they say when you're working out how much they're paying themselves, also work out how long it takes to administer the business as well as doing the lawns, because that's not the only thing you're doing. Your admin hours are going to be involved in that. How many customers do they have? Now, if they're doing a full-time round, they should have around about somewhere between 80 and 120 customers, unless they're offering hedge work and stuff like that. So you want it around that figure. Or if they've got 50 customers or 40 customers and they say they're got a full-time income off that, you better look at that, because that's initially that doesn't stack up unless, of course, they're doing large ride-on work. What area are they servicing? How far are they going? That's fairly important. You don't want to be travelling too far away. You want to know what kind of equipment they've got. So you're going to want them to give you a list of their equipment. I'll go more into the areas and the equipment later on, but for now we'll mention it, because you need to keep it in mind. The price. How did they arrive at the price? What are they based it on? Is it the same? Is it a similar price to what everybody else is selling, or is the price way out there? Sometimes if you're buying an older business, the owner of the business can be really emotionally attached to the business and can think it's worth a lot more than it actually is. So how did they arrive at their pricing? The phone number. Is the phone number going with the business, or are they taking it with them? If the phone number is staying with the business, then that's a good thing, especially if the business has been running for a while, because you're going to get work from that number. If they're taking it with them, the chances are that if someone rings them in 6 months' time and says, "Hey, I want my lawn mowed," they'll say, "I don't do that anymore." So you'll be losing. uh, all of those kind of phone calls. So if possible, try and get the phone number. Now, you want to know how old the business is. So one of the best ways to do that is to have a look at business register and see how long they've had the registered business for. If they haven't been registered, if they've got a domain, look up the who's who domain name and see see how long they've had the domain name for. Just make sure that they haven't recently bought the business, because if a business changes hands twice in a 12-month period, it makes for a very, very weak business. So, and that's not the kind of business that you want to buy. Ask them what kind of records they've got. If they can show you the books, that's great. If they can't show you the books, can they give you bank statements? Because bank statements are the next best thing. As I said earlier on, ignore anything they tell you they get in cash, because cash is irrelevant. It doesn't go through the books. It may or may not exist. If they don't have books and you're a cash buyer, then you are in a better position, because a lot of buyers will go to the bank to get funds, and if they haven't got books, then buyers can't get finance for the business, which means that only cash buyers will be able to make offers. So you may be able to negotiate there. Now, one of the best ways to actually take over a lawn mowing business is to do a meet and greet, where you pay them a certain amount down. They tell all the customers that you're taking over the business. Then you spend a weekend driving around and meeting everybody, or at least leaving your contact details on the door of anybody that's out, so they know that you've been there and they know you're taking over. So if you do a meet and greet and you go around 80 places, then at least you know if 80 people say you're going to mow their lawn, then you've got a lawn mowing business. So it's a good way of getting a business where if there's not much in the way of records. So if it's a business that runs solely on cash, it's not a good, unless you're just buying a few lawns, it's not a great idea, because it's obviously a business that hasn't been, if it can't afford to pay taxes, it's not well built. So now another thing that you should ask is, what have they told their existing customers? I find that it's better when I sell a lawn mowing business. I normally tell my customers that I'm selling the business after I found a buyer, because then I can say, hey, the bad news is I'm selling the business. The good news is that Bruce is taking over. He can do exactly the same job for the same price. And the customer goes, yeah, that sounds great, because to them it's the path of least resistance. If you didn't have somebody, then what they'd have to do is they'd have to get on the phone, they'd have to get quotes, they'd have to go through that whole thing again. So it's a good way of doing it. But if the guy's gone up to all of his customers and he said to them something like, oh, I'm selling all my lawns, then that might upset the customer, because the customer's going to go, well, you can't sell the lawn belongs to me, it's my lawn, not yours. And so they've got to be a little bit diplomatic about how they handle that, and you want to make sure that the guy that's selling the business is going to tell the customers that you're taking over before he leaves. You don't want him to just go and you turn up the next time the cut's due, because that's not going to work out too well either. So make sure that the whole process is done efficiently, that the customers know that you're taking over the lawn, they know what date you're going to be arriving. And what I'd basically do is I wouldn't change anything for the first week or two. I'd just turn up when the other guy was due, and then I'd make any changes after that. And that's all the questions I'm going to cover at this point in time, but in the next video I'm going to go through the rest of the set of questions that I'd like to ask before I bought a lawn mowing business. So until then, happy lawn mowing, people.